I learned through being an addict that I'm creative. Because I would come up with creative ways to lie and manipulate people for money. I also learned that I learned the power of the mind, and I traced my steps. And I started thinking about, it's funny, on the days that I didn't have any money, I would literally in my mind create this scenario where I didn't even know how I got the money, but I was going to the liquor store, I was buying alcohol, I was coming back home and drinking it. And long behold, I started literally living the movie out that was playing in my mind.
That was Jeremy Floyd, and you're listening to the Recover Yourself podcast. I'm your host, MartinJon, and this is where we talk about what are we recovering to beyond what we're recovering from. Recovering yourself is a journey and not something that we're ever going to be done with. Whether we have a history of addiction or not, we all have a little something to recover. Jeremy, with 21 months, is just beginning this journey. I usually talk to people with long-term recovery, and I denote that at 7 years, but that's kind of a random number because anybody can be recovering themselves, and Jeremy is definitely doing that. Something interesting about Jeremy is he walked from Minnesota or Minneapolis to California. He walked 800 miles in between there to raise awareness of addiction and homelessness. His story of where he's going is remarkable because he's learning about his faith, and not only his faith in God, but his faith in himself. Stick around to the end to find out more about Jeremy and what he's doing, as well as how you might be able to win a one-on-one portrait session with me for reviewing this podcast on your favorite podcast app. Okay, man, how you doing? I thought I was all set, but unfortunately, as soon as you got on, I was like, "Whoa, what the fuck is that?"
No worries at all. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks for joining me, man. So I see you got some ink on your arms. What's like? There's some words up there. You got?
Yeah. So I have quite a few tattoos. All my tattoos are biblically based. I didn't want to get any like animals or people. So this is 2 Corinthians 5:7, which is about faith. And then I have JC Love, which are the initials of Jesus Christ. And then I have Romans 8:30 right here. Then I have Jeremiah 29:11, or Psalms, forgive me. And then I have Jeremiah 29:11 across my chest.
All right. I don't know the Bible well enough to just be able to pull those out of my ass, but like, so, but yeah, is there a theme to all of those?
My life. I've been in a lot of situations where I've had to have faith. And this one's probably my favorite, Romans 8:30, where basically it talks about who God calls, he justifies. And I think that's important for me because of how I grew up, not really knowing who I was. And, I think it's a parent's responsibility to speak identity over their kids. And so just the situations that I was in growing up, I didn't know who I was. The one thing that I knew I was good at was just relating to people and talking. I'm not afraid. I will talk to anybody for any reason, for any time, at any point in time. So, and I like tattoos. They're pretty cool.
That's a sentiment a lot of people have. I think tattoos are pretty cool. Well, first off, so welcome to the Recover Yourself podcast. I'm so happy to be talking with you. I mean, you walked. How many miles did you walk when you went from Minneapolis?
So, out of the 1,800, I walked 800 miles. Due to the injury and due to a lot of places, like you literally, there's nowhere to walk. And I was, I gave a full disclosure to that. I told people that I would walk as much as I could, but my body, like, keep in mind, I'm an athlete. I play sports, boxing, baseball, football. My body has never shut down like that. Like, and the worst part, at least if I'm boxing, my mind is the first thing that goes. If I'm playing basketball, football, my mind is the first thing to go. My feet, like there were points where I literally could not put weight on my feet, and you're out, and I'm trying to push through, and that's probably how I tore my meniscus. But I walked 800 miles out of 1,800.
Go on. Well, that's all right, man. That's good. Do you know of the Camino de Santiago?
No, I do not.
The Camino de Santiago is a walk across northern Spain from France to essentially Finisterre. Finisterre means in Spanish essentially the end of the land. But the big kind of the Camino, right, as it's called, ends in Santiago de Compostela, and I am planning on doing 100 miles of that just to experience it. I'm a big walker, love walking.
Okay.
When I got diagnosed with MS 5 years ago, and when that happened, it took 70% of the motor function on my left side, so I was bedridden. I couldn't walk, and I remember 2 or 3 years before that thinking, man, I don't know what I would do if I ever couldn't walk.
Yeah.
And, and then that's the universe kind of stepping in and saying, well, what are you going to do? And so I just stepped up. I changed my diet, and I, utilized all the things that I had learned in recovery. Speaking of which, you're in recovery. How much time do you have?
I'm almost 2 years in. I am 21 months. And actually, what you just said, I believe there was a guy who pushed his friend in a wheelchair along that course. Yeah, it's so random. Well, not random, but how ironic that you said that. And that, I'm meeting them. They're coming to speak. And then just a bunch of people in my school wanted to link us up together. So hopefully I'll have the opportunity to meet them.
Oh yeah, no, the Camino's awesome. The Camino, it's not, but it's sanctioned by the church. When you finish it, you get this piece of paper that says you will go to heaven. Right, you essentially get a contract that says you got a free pass to go to heaven because you walked for a month. So that's nice. You didn't get that, right?
I didn't, but I learned a lot. I can definitely say that I learned a lot. When you're in a situation like that, you have no choice. You have to adapt, and I think the best thing about that walk is it literally put me in a position where I had to address things that I had been sweeping under the rug. Even just something as small as loneliness. You become familiar with loneliness where it's a Friday, it's gloomy, it's rainy and cold, and you're in the middle of South Dakota and Wyoming, and you see more cows and horses and roadkill than people. Yeah. Really, isolation and loneliness, it's two different things. And I realized what I had experienced, what I thought was loneliness. Oh man, I did some crying. I threw some temper tantrums out there. I talked to some cows. They didn't really talk back. But it's definitely it's an experience, man. I think part of me is trying to become numb to it, because I really haven't had a lot of time to process.
Right. When did you finish? How long ago?
August 3rd.
August 3rd.
Yeah.
And now it is October some odd number.
October 20 something.
Okay, yeah. So 2 months thereabouts. Yeah. Two plus. Yeah.
Yeah, but I still haven't processed. When I got back, I ended up going away to Michigan to be with my then girlfriend, which she's an amazing woman, and we're still friends to this day. But as soon as I got back, went through a breakup.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, my grandmother had just passed before I left for the walk, so I was dealing with some stuff with my mother. I had to find a job. I was working at Target corporate, which I'm not a corporate guy. I don't believe in all corporate structures, but it gave me a nice little piece of security, and my car was on the verge of getting repoed, so I didn't have time to process anything. And so now I still think, not being an addict anymore, but one of the reasons I use drug and alcohol is because I was never really taught to cope. Right. And so drugs and alcohol for me gave me an escape. And so now being in a place where now I want to feel everything, it's stressful, but learning that it's okay to say, hey, I'm sad, or I'm hurt, I'm happy, I'm frustrated, I'm angry, I'm tired, I'm hungry. Being okay, is nothing wrong with feeling those emotions. Is what you do in those emotions. And so I've had to tell a lot of people now, hey, I don't have it. I don't want to hang out. It's nothing personal. I love you. No, I don't want to sit on the phone for an hour and talk to people about nothing.
Right.
I need time to decompress, because what people don't understand, the walk was literally like doing drugs. Even though it was hard, it was this extreme high. And then, normally you come down like this, but when I got off the walk, it literally came down like that. And so it was a blessing, because it taught me that I can cope with this without running to substance, because that was one of my fears. I didn't know that was the part. I prepared financially. I thought I prepared mentally. I prepared the best as I could, physically, spiritually, emotionally. But it's just this straight drop, and you crash, and you feel the ground at a rate of speed that you could only feel if you were high.
Right.
So, but it birthed a confidence in me, like, oh, okay, I can get through this. Not saying it's easy, but I can get through it. And so,
Right.
but I'm still in the process of processing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like at least when you're on the walk, you have something to do every day and you don't think about it. I don't know if you had this problem, but when I was using, I knew what I was going to do tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to get high or get drunk.
Right. And all I had to do was that, which means it was either all around trying to get the funds or get the drugs or get the alcohol and then consuming it. And that was it. That was my whole life. And and when that subsided, right, when I quit, that was a tough thing to have, like, what are you going to do today?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a real mind fuck, especially like when you're also coming down off of drugs, right? Like what you were coming down off of, again, you mention it as drugs, but like really what you're coming down off of is like some serious self-reflection.
Oh, yes.
So talk to me a little bit about that. Like what did you discover about yourself? Like that, what came up, what resolved or what didn't? I don't know.
See, I'm more of a just based on how I grew up, I've always made the choice to try to look at the glass half full.
Okay.
And so and what I mentioned earlier about parents speaking identity over their children. I learned through being an addict that I'm creative. Because I would come up with creative ways to lie and manipulate people for money. I'm just being honest. I found out that I was determined. Look, when you're in Minnesota in February and you're outside looking through your car for change, I'm like, oh, I am determined. But then also tying that back to other things that I went through in my life, like my twin brother passing away. I also learned that I learned the power of the mind, and it's such a cliche thing. They say the mind is a terrible thing to waste. But one thing because I actually checked myself in rehab, one thing I did was I traced my steps, and I started thinking about, it's funny, on the days that I didn't have any money, I would literally in my mind create this scenario where I didn't even know how I got the money, but I was going to the liquor store, I was buying alcohol, I was coming back home and drinking it. And long and behold, I started literally living the movie out that was playing in my mind. It kind of makes me think about a nightmare, in the sense of, you ever notice when you wake up in a nightmare, like you finally wake up and you see you're in no physical danger, but your body is literally reacting as though you're in danger. And I started asking myself why, and it's because of the movie that's playing in my mind. So then I started like, wow, the imagination is a beautiful thing. What would my imagination be like if I wasn't on drugs? I'm pretty much acting like an entrepreneur right now. I'm going and getting money and support for this habit that's killing me. So I looked at it as a positive thing, but I also wanted to trace the roots to why. I'm one of those kids. I was one of those people where I always try to figure things out. Even at an early age, I was obsessed with remote control cars. Not because I actually liked the cars. I would always tear them apart because I wanted to know how do they do this? And I'm the type of person, if I can figure out how they do this, I don't need my parents to buy me remote control cars. Right. Needless to say, my parents stopped buying me remote control cars, but I've been obsessed with figuring things out. I love researching. I'm the type of person, I will stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning just researching things, whether it's technology, whether it's books, people, Instagram or Facebook. I study things and I love to study it. So it's like I became my scientist and I became my subject. And so I started to grow, I started to gain my identity, because even though I was using my creativity for negativity, that doesn't mean that the creativity is bad. Is what you do with it.
Yeah, and for me, like I don't, it's like I tried to really strip that idea of positivity, negativity out because really, like, you wanted drugs, you wanted alcohol, like you utilized your creativity to get what you wanted. Like I want to, say to you that no, you weren't using it for negative things. You judge it as negative now, but that got you here. That made you walk 800 miles. That's what pushed you to being who you are. So yes, okay, like at the time we can look at it as a negative thing, but what's really happening is that you're becoming yourself.
Absolutely, and I think that's the beauty. Like we talked about the other day on the phone, is even though you will hear me reference God or Jesus, and I just what we discuss is relationship. Even now that's the dope thing about God is He will turn. He can literally use everything, and that's one thing that I think people are afraid to talk about in the church is if you really study the Bible. God creates in dark places. If you don't believe me, look at the book of Genesis. Even the way I describe God is this, or one of the many ways I describe it. If you think back in the day before iPhones, we had those Polaroid cameras you snap, or before the Polaroid cameras, the photographer would snap the picture, and then what he would do is he would automatically go and put it in the darkness because it's the dark. See, you develop the picture in the dark, but you show it in the light. And a good photographer knows that if you expose the photo to light too early, the exposure would destroy the photo. And so,
Look at you with it. That's nice.
and I'm literally just looking at that for my life because you hit the nail on the head. Had I not been molested, and I'm not saying that's God's perfect will for my life or that's what God He wanted. He said, Jeremy, you're going to go through this. But I will say this, God obviously was very aware that it was going to happen. But had I not gone through all those things, then like you said, I wouldn't be to the point I am right now. And I think when people really begin to dive into the relationship, having a relationship with God, they start to understand like, okay, God, I screwed up, but you can make this right. What do I need to do? And for me, I'm thankful. I mean, all those things, being molested at 8 stinks. That's
an understatement, probably.
Yeah, no pun intended. Having to see my twin brother in the casket, having to see my mom get punched in the face, having to visit my dad in jail, having to be homeless, I will never forget. I drove from North Minneapolis to Wyoming, Minnesota one night. I don't remember
Wyoming, Minnesota?
Yeah, it's about 2 hours. It's about an hour and a half away from the cities. I don't remember how I got there. I woke up in the bathroom charging my phone, and I went out, and the lady's like, the clerk's like, you need to get out. I'm calling the police. I'm like, how long have I been in there? She's like, you've been in there for 5 hours. I was like, ma'am, and she goes, are you drunk? Or she goes, are you hungover? I said, ma'am, I think I'm still drunk. Like, so being able to use all those things, now I have this. What people don't understand, the best form of currency that we have on this earth is influence. It's not money, because with influence you can get money. You can have a bunch of money and have no influence. And so now having been blessed to go through all these things, now I have influence not to put on myself, but to go and grab other people out of their dark place, if they want to come. Because I would not be here talking to you right now had it not been for people who poured into my life. I would be in jail or dead. That's it.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, like if you don't argue it for me. Everybody I talk to knows we're living on borrowed time. You know what I mean? Like we're the lucky ones. We get to see our addictions,
Yeah.
and it's awesome to be able to like see our addictions and then be able to pick up the ones that are like, because the drugs and alcohol are the obvious ones, right? Like, So speaking of that, like, what are you dealing with now? I mean, I know you're still processing from your walk, but and your walk might have kind of cleared up a lot of this stuff for you too. But what are you dealing with now that like may turn into, or is a pacifier in your life, or something that you know that you need to kind of keep an eye on, keep in check?
Honestly, it's two things. And one thing, I believe in being transparent, so I'm gonna be completely honest.
Go on.
The first one is not so big. I didn't start doing it till I started doing the walk, was coffee.
Okay.
It sounds dumb. I hate
No?
coffee. I don't like the taste of it. The only reason why I drank coffee, I read an article that talks about if you just drink regular black coffee, it actually has an enzyme in it that basically, to my knowledge, disintegrates fat cells.
Okay.
So I did that on the walk to help burn more calories while I was walking.
So wait, whoa. Step back. What are
uh
you trying to burn calories? Why do you want to burn more calories when you're about to walk across the country?
Well, for one, I was being an athlete and being someone who's always played sports, and I'm 33, and I still believe in. It's so hard for me to watch basketball on TV because I want to go and play. Where a lot of people don't do that anymore, and so I was overweight a little bit. Last year this time I was at 245, and I stopped drinking and doing drugs, and I thought I was going to slim down. I blew up. And
Oh
I was
yeah,
like,
no. You got to eat, man. No, you got to eat after that
yeah,
shit.
no, seriously. And I blew up so much. So then by the time the walk, the second to last week of May, I was down to about 221. And then honestly, on the walk, I ate so much beef jerky and candy and crap like that. I got down to 208.
Okay.
But then when I got back, I went through this huge depression, and I literally had no appetite. Like the thought of food made me want to vomit. So I ended up getting down to 198. But keep in mind, I tore my meniscus, and being someone who went to school for personal training, a lot of times when you have injuries like that, the best thing you can do is lose weight because it's less pressure and tension on your knees.
Yeah.
So then I started noticing in high school I could jump really high. And I refused to be one of those guys who's like, oh, I'm 35, I can't jump. No. And so I started noticing I can still dunk, but I can dunk with ease now. And I was like, I like this. So just getting back into my workout routine. And then the second thing, since we're being fully honest and transparent, is learning anger can become an addiction.
Oh yeah, all emotions are. All emotions are just chemically based. So yes.
Yes. Learning to, how can I say this? If I don't know how to say something to you, just because I'm mad at you.
This gets heavily edited, so you can say what you want. We can talk about how you want it edited.
Oh, no. If you keep it raw and real.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. I just want to make sure that you're cool with what you say, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the type of person where just because I'm mad at you or angry with you or hurt, it does not give me the right to disrespect you. So I've learned in life that if I don't know how to say something, I will take time. And one thing I've learned, man, and this may sound so cliche, and it may sound simple, I cannot control what anyone else does or says to me as long as they don't put their hands on me, but I can control what I do or say. But the moment I said, no, I am angry and this hurts, and then you follow it up with, but that's okay.
Mm-hmm. And you know, like for me, like so much of the work that I do is revolves around the idea of trying to understand where in your life does this scenario play out between you and yourself, right? Like when do you when and where do you, like some of the words that you were using is like manipulate and steal, right? Where are you manipulating yourself? Where are those like little times that you're stealing within your life? Where are those little things that are happening to you that you need to grow through? And then I go through this all the time. Every time like my nephew frustrates me because he's being he's looking for pity, I have to look at myself and go, where in my life am I looking for pity? And when I find it, I'm able to forgive him for looking for pity because my anger has nothing to do with him looking for pity. It has to do with me looking for pity. You know, and so that's how that works.
Yeah, no, that's very valid. And I think for me, and what I've learned so far, and I'm going to continue to learn, but for me, it was when I steal from myself or manipulate myself is just not being honest with where I am. Like acknowledgement is one of the most beautiful tools that we have. And I'm gonna give an example, and it might sound cliche, but you go to a hotel room. Every hotel or motel has one of those little signs that says, in case of emergency, you are here. And then it shows, or in case of fire, you are here, and then it shows the exit. And you know, if you ask a person what the most important detail in that illustration is, most people will tell you that it's the stairs. I disagree, because if you can't acknowledge where you are in correlation to where the help is, you can't get to help. And so just really being honest with myself and asking myself, why am I angry? And for me, it was just, you're dealing with walking. There is nothing better than when you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh, what am I going to do today? I'm going to walk.
Yeah, no question.
And yeah, it's like, oh man, like I'll maybe kick some rocks down the road while I'm walking. I'll count out the roadkill. How many times am I going to, how many deer, but just, you learn to, I had to learn to let go. Because one of my biggest desires in life, I just want to love people who feel like they don't have anybody to love. Or I want to love people who people claim are unlovable. And so in all actuality, I was getting what I have been asking for. And
damn right.
That's what I've learned.
I talk to people all the time. It's just like, you got to love them. And they're like, well, I can't love them. And I'm like, well, then there's a part of yourself you can't love. It doesn't have anything to do with them. That's you. You are unable to love that part of yourself that is, what you deem as bad. And you know what? We are all capable of murder. We have 2 hands. We have a mind. We can kill another person. And you know what? If we can't embrace and love that part of ourselves that is possible of doing, that is possible, we are not going to end up loving ourselves totally unconditionally. Everything will then have a condition, and we have to be able to love ourselves completely. And when we can do that, and the way that we know we're doing that is when we look out at the world and we say, do I love you? Because if I can love you, even if I never talk to you, even if I never want to be influenced by you, can I love you? Can I still offer you love?
I'm telling you that, especially for people who bear the name of Christ or say his name. Because it's like, for me, it was like, oh, I can't stand you. I don't like you. If I see you, it's going down. And then it got to a place, how could I not like you when I was you, when I've done things like that? And then that, even people who don't believe in Christ, which is, I have no heaven and hell to put anyone in, but that is the epitome of his message. He came and loved people who didn't deserve it. So I'd be a hypocrite. It doesn't mean, and that's where people get it mixed up. I don't have to like everything you say. I don't even have to like you for the day. My love for you is greater, but at the same time, I'm learning that lesson. When I get to a point where I'm like, I don't like that person, I start to analyze, okay, because what we do as humans, we deflect and project
and reflect
onto other people. And it's like, oh, it's really a heart issue with me. It really has nothing. Maybe, just maybe, call me crazy, maybe God allowed that situation to come up to show me what's inside of me. But then when you start talking like that, people get defensive, and it's like, what do you have to lose from being vulnerable and honest? You're only holding yourself in bondage.
Yeah. And when you talk about that, like, other people, if other people get scared, they're scared of it. They don't have to look at it. You don't have to look at yourself. You can continue the way you are. Is that working out for you? Congratulations. I'm happy for you. But for me, it's just got to get better. It's always got to get better. And that means more connection. That means more love. That means more love for myself. It means more love for others. The more I love myself, the more I'm going to love you. The more I love you, the more you're going to love yourself. And then you're going to spread that. I'm going to spread that. Eventually, this world will fucking balance out. Because right now, it's out of balance. It's out of whack. And there's way too much fucking shit going down that people are escaping. If we can have this conversation of what are we recovering to? What are we going towards? And again, I always say there is no prerequisite for recovery. Just because you and I are coming out of harder addictions and the more obvious addictions, that doesn't mean that people don't have shit to recover.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said have a conversations. Now, and I'm not against social media. I like social media, but now with social media, we live in a time of comments. No one wants to have a conversation anymore. And then I grew up in a time where I could talk to people and say, no, I don't really agree with that, but I still love you. But now it's starting to shift where people are saying, you don't agree with me? you hate me. No, I never said that. I just said I don't, like, I can differentiate between the two. I love you, but if you say, let's go swim with sharks, I'm sorry, you're on your own on that one. It doesn't mean I don't like you. I'm not about to go swimming with sharks. Or, hey, I'm going over to a friend's house who smokes weed. Have fun. I'm not going with you. Doesn't mean I don't love you. I still have friends that use.
Right.
You know, I can't hang, I'm not going to hang out with them as much as I want to. But it's like, and you know, like you said, man, just that's you finding a way to spark hard conversations. And we have to stop being so cowardly sometimes. And it's like the moment you say something someone doesn't understand, you know, and we talked about this on the phone. One of the worst things you can do is call a person crazy because it's dismissive. So
right.
Because you don't understand it, now you want to put a title and box this person in. So if they act within this box, they're crazy. And if they act outside of the box, then they're crazy. And that's the thing, even with addicts, is like, I don't want people to see me as an addict. And the reason being is, I say that people will put titles on you when they don't recognize you or they can't control you. But then the moment you put an addict title on me, you miss me as a son, you miss me as a father, you miss me as a goofball, you miss me as someone who just likes, I literally love to read. And it's like, no, I'm Jeremy Floyd, right? That is what I did. It's not who I am, but we just live in such a weird time. You could
We're transitioning, man. We're transitioning. It's a beautiful thing. Like, and the thing is like now, you know, like I want to look at you. I want to say, hey, welcome to the club. Like, because you're helping people see themselves.
Love is the foundation of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you don't believe in Christ, you
right.
have
it doesn't matter.
Yeah, you have some knowledge that the foundation of what he did was based on love. And so for me, that's what I had always been trying to seek out in sex, running the streets, sports, alcohol, drugs, porn. I mean, we just going to be really honest about it.
Yeah.
And all these places just took life from me. And I will never forget this. This was about a month after my twin brother passed away. My mom gave me a pocket Bible. And I used to carry it around with me. And I remember on a Saturday, I sat in my closet and I ripped up the pages to the Bible. And I said, I'm not going to say the actual word, I'll just abbreviate. I said, F you, God. I will never serve you. You're the reason for all of this. And I said, if you are real, if your son is who he says he is, you got to help me. I don't want to know you based off my grandmother. I don't want to know you based off my mom. I don't want to know you based off of my pastor. Make it real for me. And you experience something, I experienced something. That's the thing about God. People don't understand. It's an experience. He's so amazing that he cannot be explained. He can only be revealed. And if you look at the funny thing about that word reveal, that is the root word to the word revelation. And so for now, being someone who said I would never serve God, and even after that and I still run in certain areas, but knowing like, man, you actually just love me. It's not performance-based. I don't have to do anything. And you don't love me because I'm good. You love me because you're just that good. I don't deserve that. And, you know, I think just, you know, man, we live in an interesting world, but I think there's a lot of darkness and we are all in some capacity responsible for it. But why not do something different, man? Like, why not?
Just look at it differently. You know, like someone told me the other day, she was like, you know, so like one of my coworkers, I don't know the exact story, but I'm gonna ad lib it here. She was like, one of my coworkers came in and she had a ticket on her car and she got angry. And I looked at her and I said, that's such a boring response to get angry. Why don't you figure out a different way to fucking respond to that? You know, figure out a different way. Don't be so pedestrian to get angry that you got a ticket.
Right.
Why don't you look at it as like you have a couple options. You can take a day in court. You know, like you can pay that sumbitch and get it off your back. You don't even have to mention it. I don't fucking care. I don't care you got a ticket. And I definitely don't care that you're upset about it. Get creative. Live your life. Be curious. One of the people I interviewed, Gary Lindsay, who is New Life Mentor on Instagram, he says, you know, like being curious Just being curious. Man, I'm feeling upset. What is that? What is that
Why?
about? Why?
Right.
Why did I get hurt when you said that? Just be curious. If you
Yes,
can be
man.
curious just a little bit, you figure a
That,
lot out about yourself.
that's so true, man. That reminds me of like if you can imagine like a grown up and a little kid going into like Times Square for the first time ever. It's always funny. The grown ups always looking like this, straight ahead. The kids always looking like all the buildings,
Yeah.
and it's like you're right. Like even the situation with the car ticket. At least you got a car.
Right?
A lot of
Right?
people, and that was one of the things I learned being on that walk. I'm telling you, man, I've never had so much fun kicking rocks down the road. Roadkill, I'm not gonna lie to you, it was nasty, but I was like, hey, this is kind of cool. Cows, I'm like, well, you guys are big and a little ugly, but you taste amazing.
Well, I'm going to tell you, the first time I was in a field with a cow scared the shit out of me. Those motherfuckers are huge. And you know
They
what?
are.
I'm a fucking city kid. I mean, the first time I was in a field with a cow, I had to be 20, 21, and I was freaking. I was like, "Oh my god, that thing can kill me!" And I was, like this is when I was still using and stuff. So maybe it seemed a little bigger than it was, but even still, motherfucker was big. Like I was like, I cannot, and solid as a rock, man. Those things are not, and they don't. And I didn't touch it because I was too afraid it was gonna bite me. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. Like I ain't fucking grass, but I just saw it and I was just like, oh my god. Like that thing is humongous. And like if that thing wants, it can just take me out. My respect for nature, having not had it my whole life, like my whole childhood, like I thought the entire world was concrete.
Oh my God, yes, man. Yeah, oh my, I remember several times getting that thought on the walk, like, because I think anybody being from a big city, but obviously you can relate being from Chicago. It's house, 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 brownstone, brownstone, apartment, 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 apartment. Not a lot of it unless you go out to the suburbs. And I remember just being out there. I was like, wow, that was a big adjustment. Being a city kid, where
Yeah.
you can see a bus, you can go to the L, you can see the skyline downtown Chicago, and then you just grass and fence
You
and
walk 6
cows.
hours, you ain't seen shit. All you see is corn. That's it. You just see
No,
corn
yeah,
for 6 hours.
I would have loved to have seen corn. I didn't. I would have loved it. Nothing like it was literally just horse, cow, fence, grass, horse, and it was. And I remember it's like those. They're little barbed wire fences, but I'm like, I don't think that fence can hold that cow back. And they slowly come up to the fence, and I'm on the highway, so I mean, just little small highways. There's cars, so I got it. It may sound silly, but that was a fear. And I remember asking myself, what am I afraid of? And I remember it's like, because the thought that came to my mind was, I'm not in control. And I think it was
Mhm.
beautiful that the cars were coming, because now I had no exit. I had to stay on that side of the street. And like you said, it's a difference from seeing a cow when you're driving by or in a movie. When you are up close to them, like some of them are, you like, if I die by a cow, then I was like, it's just my time.
Yeah.
Because those things are solid. And I'm like, I can't really run because my knee is hurting. My feet are killing me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I have a serious fear with not being in control. Well, why do I have that fear of being in control? Because every time I haven't been in control, somebody's taking advantage of me. Well, what's the bad?
Mm.
And even taking a step further, well, what is the bad thing about being taken advantage of? Is it the fact that I was actually taken advantage of, or is it the fact that I believed the lie that I was worthless? So now this is
What?
forcing me.
Go on.
Now this is forcing me to deal with the fact that I really don't believe I'm worth it. And I'm telling you, man, there's like something that happens in your body and your mind where it was like the best way I can describe it is like if you crack a knuckle, something happened in my soul where it like cracked. And it was like one side of me it was like this little kid, because science has shown the age you experience trauma is the age you get stuck up. And it was like this fire, and it was like this fire. I had a vision. It was the 5-year-old me, and I was in this dungeon, and I had all these chains and shackles on me, and I was all cut up and bruised. And I remember the little 5-year-old me peeking around the wall. And the current me was like, no, go back in, like yelling and yelling and yelling. And the younger me just said with a little whisper, no, I'm good enough. But I remember in the vision, I remember looking toward the wall. And even though I was in chains and shackles, they weren't bound to the wall. There's nothing worse than when you're waiting for someone to get you out of a prison to only look down and realize you had the key the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
That was one of the most emotional days I had on that walk. Because I'm like, wow, I really don't think I'm worth it. And it hurt, but it was good. But that hurt. And yeah, that hurt. But it was honestly, it was one of the best growing pains I ever experienced. I'm like, this needs to happen. It just, yeah, man, like when I tell you it hurt, but it was, it was a beautiful thing. But
absolutely. Like realizing that you've done it, right? Realizing that you're the one that held on to the shit. You forgot plenty of things in your past.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and just because, you know, like you didn't relive it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the shit you relived over and over and
mm-hmm.
over again. And those are the things those are your chains, right? Those are the things that are holding you back. And those are the things that, you know, like you can now that you've dealt with that, grow up a little bit more. You don't have to be a 5-year-old. Like, and we look around at the world, and how many children do we see running the world today? How many little babies are out there kind of complaining about other people and yelling? And here we are, you and I, and like all the other, you know, addicts that are kind of facing themselves in an honest way, right? And all the other people that are out there, like really looking at themselves and doing the hard work of growing, because this world is just too many children out there. That's the thing. There's just not enough people out there that understand that they are in control, and like they provide for the world, and the world is here to provide for them, but you got to do your part. And you know, like I just posted something on Instagram, and it was in my email today that went out yesterday actually. It was like, if you're not the coolest person you know, what the fuck are you doing? You know,
I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I think I'm one of the dopest people on this earth.
Damn right, and you better be, right? We all have to be.
Seriously, I enjoy, like, that was another thing the walk did for me. So, you know, being a twin, you're always around a twin. You're always around someone. And then the only times my brother and I would get separated, my brother had passed away from a disease called Evans syndrome. Which is an autoimmune disease that basically forced, you know, his immune system would attack his body. For instance, we were playing basketball one day. He got an inadvertent elbow from somebody, and we couldn't stop him from bleeding. He had to stay in the emergency room for 2 weeks.
Mm.
And so when he finally passed, I had to relearn, because remember I told you as a kid, I was always by myself. And like, I love my brothers, but I just had fun being by myself. So when my brother passed at 13, I had to retrain my mind to enjoy myself. And then I couldn't do it. Drugs and alcohol come in.
Mm.
So they were like my best friends. So then getting off of drugs and alcohol, I had to be okay with being by myself and being on that walk. No internet, T-Mobile, thank you, but they lied. They say they covered 99.9% of Americans. I must have been the 0.1% that they didn't cover, because I never.
Yeah, you walk through 0.1% of the shit they don't cover.
Yeah, like I had terrible service in Vegas, Colorado, Utah. Only place I had good service was Minnesota and California. There are a lot of states in between.
There are. There are quite a few. Yeah.
But I had to learn how to enjoy myself again. And part of that is being honest. Like, hey, I feel lonely, and that's okay. It's not the end of the world. I'm not gonna die. I'm just so sick of seeing grass right now, and I want to see a human being right now. But I thank God that I didn't get to see people when I wanted to, because I would have used it as a crutch. Right. Because sometimes we use, you know, drugs and alcohol. Ooh. Let's talk about porn. Let's talk about sex.
Food, like, cleaning, clutter, fucking you name it, coffee. Like, it doesn't matter, man. Shopping and shoes and fucking exercising and reading and like Even like people that can't stand being quiet, they have to just fill the air with space. Like, oh God, I got to fill all this space with fucking garbage words, man.
Like, especially when I hate, one of my biggest pet peeves, when I'm eating, I'll give somebody the face like, I don't want to talk. I hate when I'm like, you're eating a really good steak and you get to the good part and then somebody wants to ask you a question. And unfortunately, the question makes you think, so you stop enjoying the steak. And I've had to tell people sometimes, hey, no disrespect, but shut up. I'm eating. I don't want to talk. Why would you try to talk to me when I'm brushing my teeth and then get annoyed that you can't understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. No disrespect, but shut up. Like, seriously, please. I love that. That's great. You know, like, I want to be able to just say, no disrespect, but shut up. Leave
me alone right now. I'm eating.
Like, you see I'm doing something. Oh, Jeremy, Jesus, thank you so much.
Yes, sir, thank you.
I want to thank Jeremy for all the work he's doing. I would also like to point out that although he has less than 2 years, his message isn't too different than the folks I speak to on this podcast who have even double digits. Why is that? It's hard to say, but when he was out on the road walking and alone, he had no choice but to look at himself. This is the point of recovering yourself. We have to look at who we are, and through that, we start to recover a true sense of self. Pilgrimages, like the one Jeremy went on, have been going on throughout history. They can be life-changing. They challenge you physically, mentally, and spiritually. You don't have to walk 800 miles to accomplish that, but you are going to have to challenge yourself. You're going to have to challenge yourself to wake up to yourself in ways that sitting on your couch just isn't going to instigate. Walking, as Jeremy did, makes the unseen seen. You start to realize where you're hiding from yourself. You see, we're all on a journey, and while we're only recovering from, we're constantly focused on what we left behind and how far it is we are from there. Jeremy had to focus on where he was going. What was behind him was behind him. It had no bearing on where he was going. It was no longer a road he had to walk. But having walked it, he can now move into his next steps. One day at a time looks very different whether you're looking back or looking forward. Don't get me wrong, recovering from, looking back, is the only way to grow from addiction. But the goal of that is to eventually start to look forward. Thank you for listening to the Recover Yourself podcast, and I want to work with you. I'm currently giving away a 20-minute portrait session a month. In order to put your name in to win that, just rate and review this podcast and share it with me on Instagram, and I'll add it to my story, which will let you know that you're in the basket. Your name won't be removed to the basket until either you win or the giveaway ceases. Thank you for your support, and until next week, keep recovering yourself.